Kia ora, Kiwi Culture here, and welcome to episode 57, Hongi's Rotorua Campaign, Part 2. Part 1 concluded with Hongi and his force encamped below the hill of Ngau Kawakawa on the edge of Rotorua, close to the Ohau Channel. I'll again be using the book The Wild Wind from the North by Don Stafford as my reference. When Pomare and his advance 200 toa arrive at Ngau Kawakawa campsite, those on Mokoia were somewhat buoyed by such a small force. Canoes had been sent from the island to berate the Ngapuhi. Musket shots had kept them at a safe distance. Now, with the full Ngapuhi force of over 1,100, together with the 8 large war canoes, the moods become more sombre. A portion of those 1,100 are slaves, wives, and artisans. The number on Mokoia isn't stated in any of the accounts. So what do we know? Well, many in the Rotorua area have known of this campaign well before it left the Bay of Islands. So many Te Arawa have fled, most into the Uruweras. Those remaining are now on Mokoia. There are the Ngāti Rangawewehi, led by Kahawai, Hikairo, and Harehuka. The Ngāti Whakawai under Tarakau, and Ngāti Unuku Kaupakau under Te Korekore. There's no mention of Tuhurangi from Motutawa, the main culprits in the killing of Te Otarangi and his party. I'm going to assume that Te Arawa have around 1,200 warriors and 800 women and children. The main village on Mokoia is Pukeiti, on this plateau of about 4 acres called Kaiwaka. Within its palisading is the main meeting house, Tamatakapua. Around the slopes are a number of ancient pa with fortifications, none strengthened to withstand muskets. This flat area is fenced for cultivation and to exclude wild pigs from the interior. Also, new kaianga have sprung up to accommodate the influx. Mokoia is prepared for a long siege, but little efforts have been made to strengthen the fortifications. Ngapuhi bringing their own canoes has been a shock. An invasion of the island is now only a matter of time. With 8 Ngapuhi canoes, around 400 warriors can be landed at any one time. If Te Arawa can concentrate their forces, they may be able to destroy the initial wave and then capture the Ngapuhi canoes. Then all threats cease. For success, they must funnel Ngapuhi to Te Arawa's selected landing site. Along this section here and a little here are the best landing sites. Along this area, they will place and spread existing boulders to make landing a large canoe dangerous. On this section, they'll drag boulders and beach their own war canoes and fishing canoes to block a mass landing. This will leave this section here. At night, they plan to sink boulders just under the water so large canoes will strike them. The probable success of this plan buoys those on the island. Fishing canoes will be moored along this section as a plan B. Other fishing canoes are to be distributed at known places around the island's rugged coast as escape canoes. These are sunk with rocks. This is Plan C. Although accounts talk of Te Arawa having only 1 musket, how feasible is this? With muskets acquired from Te Tarangi's force 6 months earlier on Motutawa, and those from Kaikinikini's force a few days ago, there's almost certainly more. For this episode, I'm going to say 4. Day 1 ends with the Ngapuhi's fires easily seen from the island. From the island, the cadence of the Ngapuhi haka and discharging of muskets is heard. An occasional scream of a survivor of Whangai Korea drifts to the island and chills everyone to the bone. On day 2, at dawn, the island is awake and in partial readiness for an attack. The sun continues to rise without drama. The rearranging of existing boulders along the east coast is done quickly. Many fishing canoes are moved and moored amongst these boulders. Canoes are taken to the south side of the island and submerged. Just prior to midday, the putatara sounds. 4 Ngapuhi canoes are approaching. Rangatira and their toa race to the northern beaches. The musketeers take firing positions behind cover. The chant from the paddlers increases. The Te Arawa line the eastern shore to get a good view. The canoes sweep down the eastern side about 40 metres offshore. The crowd keeps pace on the eastern shore. The chanting stops. The paddlers on the starboard side stow their paddles, raise their muskets, and in unison the 4 canoes fire a withering volley. Random people drop. There are a lot of them. The rest run from the water's edge. The canoes turn about. The Te Arawa musketeers fire. Paddlers are seen to slump. The second pass and volley is abandoned by Ngapuhi. Desultory shots are fired to little effect now that Te Arawa have retired. The hidden Te Arawa marksmen fire and reposition until the canoes strike back to their northern camp. The dead are gathered and the wounded moved to a special whare on the flat and tended to as best as possible. This was an exercise to terrorise and assess the island's strength. The number killed and wounded in that one volley has stunned Te Arawa. Their plan, although still workable, needs greater organisation. Either way, their casualties are going to be high. Early afternoon, a small canoe with 4 people is seen approaching from the east. The musketeers are called in Hakairo and 20 Ngāti Rangawaiwahi muster on the closest land. Within earshot, greetings are shouted. It is the great Tohunga, Tūmakoha, and his slaves. The same Tūmakoha whose brains Hongi wished to consume. The auspiciousness of his arrival lifts the spirits of everyone. The Atuas are truly smiling on them, and the prospect of success amplified. He is escorted to Puketi and enthusiastically greeted by the rangatira. He tells of the Ngapuhi party who came to Okataina to capture him, how he had sensed their mission and used his magic to baffle and escape them, and here he was. He joins the other Tohunga on the island. They will combine their power for the common good. On day 3, the dawn stand-to is without incident. They stand down, eat, and begin unearthing boulders and transporting to the northern beaches. It's hard work. The number required is bigger than expected. Near midday, 2 Wakatoa are seen approaching from the north. The putatara sounds. People take their places. The Ngapuhi canoes stand well offshore. The Ngapuhi occupants study the Te Arawa war canoes on the northern beach. They yell to the shore who will claim the canoes once Te Arawa are defeated. A war of abuse pours from both sides, each claiming the other's canoe and what they will do with the other's heads. Shots are fired by both sides, but to no effect. The Ngapuhi observe the work the Te Arawa have been doing. The crowd on the beach separates. The Tohunga stride upon the beach, led by Tumakoha. Their chants and curses flow across the water. Incredibly, a wind comes up and water becomes choppy. From the Ngapuhi canoes, a woman's high-pitched voice gives a counter-chant. It is Turikatuku, Hongi's blind wife. Other Ngapuhi Tohunga join her at the front of the canoe. Chants and curses are exchanged and objects raised in the air. The waves now getting larger, the Ngapuhi canoes head back to shore. This has been a definitive victory for Te Arawa. Within a few hours, the wind abates. Early afternoon, a fishing canoe is seen heading to the northwestern corner of the island. Hakairo and a selection of Ngāti Rangawaewahi assemble there. There are two women in the canoe. A voice he recognises calls to him. He's stunned. It's his sister, Te Arawa. He hasn't seen her for 5 years, not since she was captured by Ngapuhi. He has learned that Te Arawa has taken her as wife, and there, 30 metres offshore, she now stands, talking to him. He entreats her to come ashore and be greeted by her people. She looks at her companion, who shakes her head. Te Arawa says she cannot, but has brought word that of those Ngāti Rangawaewahi people who separate and isolate themselves on Mokoia, the Te Rerenga Apane, they will be unmolested and their safety guaranteed. Without hesitation, Hakairo rejects her offer. His fate is with those on the island. After telling each other of their lives, the canoe sadly departs to whence it came. News of Te Arawa's offer spreads. Many see this as a sign that Ngapuhi's attack is imminent. Day 3 concludes in an ominous mood. It is day 4. Te Arawa awaken pre-dawn to cloud banks drifting across the lake. By pre-dawn light, they take their positions. Visibility on the lake varies as the clouds separate and rejoin. If ever there was an ideal morning for Ngapuhi to attack, this is it. Expectations are high. The silence profound. Not even lapping of waves. The breathing of those next to them quite distinct. As the peaking sun lights the top of the cloud banks, an unseen flock of gulls raucously take flight, and there, in complete silence, out of the fog, emerges the decorated Ngapuhi canoes, 8 abreast and 100 metres offshore. A blood-curdling scream announces the Ngapuhi, who begin their chant. All attempts at stealth now abandoned. Te Arawa are in good position. Ngapuhi approach the beach hopeful. Te Arawa stamp their feet in unison and advance to their positions, gesticulating and barking. They stop now on the grass edge. A great roar goes up. 3 of the musketeers have been tasked with shooting Hongi. The canoes close rapidly. Hongi, easily identifiable with his steel Marion helmet, his chainmail and his red tunic, is standing at the front of one of the middle canoes, his loaders behind him. 3 shots from the shore are followed by silence. Hongi's head snaps back. He spins as the ball ricochets off his chainmail and he collapses in the arms of his main loader. Everything now occurs in slow motion. The limp body of Hongi regains some rigour as he attempts to stand again. The helmet has saved him, but he is concussed. Seeing Hongi is alive reinvigorates Ngapuhi and dampens Te Arawa. The kaihoi stow their paddles and shoulder their muskets. Those with targets fire. 5 canoes glide onto the beach. 3 have grounded on the boulders and are perched on their bow. The occupants thrown forward with some muskets discharging into those nearby. The Te Arawa attack. The gap between the canoes, 1 to 2 metres. Attackers charge into the water and attempt to board. Many are shot at point-blank range. Those in the bows abandon their muskets for tomahawk. Fighting at the front of the canoes is intense. Those at the rear load, advance, and shoot. Many Te Arawa board canoes, but are expelled with savage wounds. The limited area at the bows prevents Te Arawa from bringing numbers to bear. The gap between the canoes now becomes jammed with bodies both limp and struggling. A warrior with a blunderbuss strides to the front of the canoe and fires. It is devastating. He retires unhurried to reload. The maroon canoes provide a shooting platform, the water too deep for Te Arawa to effect any meaningful attack. Te Arawa are being slaughtered for no gain. The putatara sounds. Fighting ceases, and Te Arawa retire to join the rear ranks that are set back off the beach. The battle has paused. An unspoken truce prevails. Women come and assist the wounded to the rear. The plan to prevent Ngapuhi from landing has failed. Ngapuhi gather themselves. The maroon canoes reverse off the boulders and join the others. Ngapuhi reload and dismount over the bow and form up in 5 rows facing Te Arawa. Behind the last row are the wounded, the Tohunga with Turika Tuku, the Ao Kaparangi and Hongi with his loaders, his head still ringing and a savage bruise on his chest. The 2 forces face off 30 metres apart. For Te Arawa, this is their last throw of the dice. The formalities of battle now entered into. Challenges and counter-challenges are made. At the conclusion, there's a momentary silence. Then the 4 Te Arawa muskets fire, the signal to charge. As one, they charge in a blood-curdling mass. 90 muskets of Ngapuhi's first line belch out death in a plume of smoke. The smoke clears. The second row fires. Te Arawa advance, stumbling over their fallen comrades. The smoke clears. The third line fires. The clearing smoke shows the advance is stalled, still 10 metres from Ngapuhi. The fourth line fires. It is brutal, the balls passing through 2 or 3 warriors before stopping. The smoke clears, revealing the Te Arawa in retreat. The fifth line fires, not out of necessity, but more out of anticipation. After all, it is their turn. The battle for Mokoia Island is decided. For Ngapuhi, it is time to mop up and begin the enjoyment of revenge and the spoils of victory. For Te Arawa, it is a time of fear, terror, and flight. Ngapuhi reload and set off in pursuit. Their tomahawks will be busy today. Okay, folks, that's where we're going to leave this episode. The mopping up operations and fallout from the Ngapuhi victory has many twists and turns, so join me for part 3, the final part. The micro details of this episode have come from my research-based imagination, but aligns well with events in Don's book. The actual battle in the book is extremely brief, just one paragraph. Hongi being shot in the helmet, Te Ao Kaporangi's offering Ngāti Rangawaiwai refuge, Mokoia and the Tohunga battle are all events in Don's book. It's a great read, so give it a go. It's not possible to drone over Mokoia, so sorry for lack of any aerial footage. So if you've got anything to say, put it down in the comments. I enjoy reading them and I reply to most. If you enjoyed this episode, then give it a like. Hey, subscribe even. Anyway, hey Kona, take it easy. Catch you next time.